I got something I really want to preach about. I went totally blank. And I've tried. It's not like I've just procrastinated this. I really tried. Even this morning, I was last minute trying to, man, I got to come up with something, and nothing was coming to me. I've come to realize, though, it doesn't seem to matter, because like yesterday, I was in Oklahoma City. I was doing a seminar, and everybody kept asking, what are you going to do? I really don't know. I'm going to play off whatever's there. So, and that's kind of what I ended up doing. And it worked out well, thankfully. But as I'm struggling with this, I just keep getting this peace about me. It's like, don't worry about it. That still takes a tremendous act of faith to sit there and say, I'm going to preach from a new church, and people have never heard me speak before, and I have nothing prepared. But it keeps telling me, don't worry about it. But I can tell you something. Well, first I'm going to tell you this because it's kind of funny, but I have gone up here before, the last church I was at, and several times I had to go in there fill in for the pastor. Like, oh, I'm so excited about this. I got all this I want to say, and I have all these notes, and I've got all these spots marked in my Bible, and I have all these things. And I get up there, and not even 5 minutes into it, I'm like, I'm out of words. I got 20 minutes left, and I'm out of words. It was kind of actually they were called sermonettes. But I can tell you something that's kind of interesting, and then you guys can kind of think me flaky or whatever, and that's fine, because I really believe in this. I'm a strong believer in spiritual warfare. And I don't know what I meant to say today, but I can tell you last night, I actually felt a very evil presence come in. It woke me up from a dead sleep, and there's one thing, I can tell the difference in a bad dream and when there's an evil presence in the room. I haven't had this in years and years. And last night was probably the worst it's ever been, if it not, one of the worst, if not the worst it's ever been, because it didn't want to go away. So I don't know what I've got to say to you guys. Apparently it's threatening somebody. So I'm going to start with something. I love the Matthew West song, if you guys have heard it, and Matthew introduced me to it when it first came out, the song Do Something. And it came to mind yesterday. We were at a clinic yesterday in Oklahoma City, and this group I belong to, and in fact, we're one of the founding members of it. One of our president, our founding member, is the recent convert to Christianity. Well, he's been a Christian for years, but he's been kind of a lukewarm Christian for a long time. About a year ago, is that right? He really got on fire for the Lord and really started coming around. And he wants to take our martial arts and spread it to a worldwide ministry. And something he said really kind of came true to me is, he said, we've got all these things, we've got all these skills, we've got all this knowledge, but, God can do anything. He doesn't need us. We don't, and it's right, He doesn't need us, but He chooses to use us. And then that song by Matthew West, I love that, because he's going on about all the problems in the world, and I can't remember word for word, if you guys ever heard it. He's going on all the problems in the world, on and on, and he looks up to heaven and he says, God, won't you do something? And he said, I did. I created you. And that is really powerful. And that one little spot kind of gets me a little choked up. And of course, that always takes me back to my favorite book of the Bible, which is James. And I really wasn't going to try to intentionally do James, but everything just kind of comes back around to that one little book. Yes, it's a real small book in the Bible, but it's got a lot of stuff in it. And the cool thing about James is he's not a real happy-go-lucky guy. He's actually kind of a downer. So give you a little history behind me and James. And then I went to the Lutheran Church for about 10 years. And coming and quoting the book of James, I discovered they don't like James at all. Martin Luther didn't even believe that James should be a part of the canon. And he kind of felt that coming from the Catholic Church and everything he went through, that James contradicted a lot of Paul's writings. If you really get into studying them both, they didn't contradict. James defines what Paul says. This is divine intervention. Books are written at totally different times. They could have very well had information, that's fine, but James, and we'll turn to different places because James was speaking to a totally different group than Paul was. Paul's talking about, no, you don't need faith to be, I wouldn't need works to be saved. You're saved justified through grace. It's by your faith that you're saved. And yes, that is true. But James comes in and say, let's just look at what he says. And I'm going to be flipping around a lot, guys, so just bear with me, and I didn't even mark it, but I can usually go to James pretty quick. I like James because he's a straight shooter. He doesn't pull any punches. Oh, I kind of got sidetracked with let me get back to my history of James. When I first started reading James, I did not like it at all because he's not, like I said, he's not a happy-looking guy. Everything's he's kind of a downer. He really is. And it was kind of something to deal with. It was like, phew, man, he's kind of convicting. I don't like what he's saying. Let me get over here and read some of Paul's writings to the Gentiles. It's a lot more comforting. But as I got into studying it, I started to really like it, and I started to really see what he's getting at, and not see it so much as a threat, he's really defining again what Paul says. People talk about the Bible contradicting itself. It really doesn't. If you really get into studying, the Bible doesn't contradict itself. It defines itself. My personal opinion on that, my theory on it, is that it's written that way for a reason. The canon is set the way it is for a reason. So you will study the entire Word. Yes, you'll read one thing that says something and something else that contradicts it. If you really look at it, it doesn't say that. It defines it. Things are black and white, but sometimes they have to be really defined. Anyway, I'm reading out of the ESV, so it's going to be a little different what you guys got. What is it, my brothers? If someone says he has faith but does not have works, can that faith save him? If a brother or sister clothed poorly and lacking daily food, one of you says to them, go in peace, be warm and filled, without giving them things that they need for their body, what good is that? So also, faith by itself does not have works, is dead. But if someone say, I have faith, or you have faith and I have works, show me your faith apart from your works, and I will show you my faith by my works. This is the one part that I really think is super powerful in this. You believe that God is one, you do well. Even the demons believe that and shudder. You believe in God, so what? So do the demons. They shudder about it. That's the scary thing is now we're in a dying world. We really are. And I think that it's very disheartening to look at it. And sometimes I get to a point that I don't look at it. I turn a blind eye to a lot of things. It's not good. This is a confession. This isn't I'm not proud of this. But it's like, man, everything around me is like there's things that 10, 15 years ago that were perverse and frowned upon now are being not only accepted, but being forced on us to accept them. It's not just one thing or another. It's a lot of things. Morals are going down. The only thing that is actually noted as wrong anymore is when you start contradicting somebody else's. If I step on what you want to do, that I'm wrong. Boundaries and laws and morals are going fast. I think it's our place to step up and say something. And I think that for us to sit back and say, and we cop out a lot. And it's going to come back to what Brian's been preaching on, that, at what point do we let God handle it time we step up ourselves? And that's a huge thing. But I think this is where it comes in that we didn't have a working faith. I think that we're sometimes being nothing else more than light of the world. An example. One little small pebble in a pond can cause a ripple, right? And I say this because, and the thing is, we don't become discouraged. And later on, I think this is another one that James is really good on. So I'm just going to flip around a lot. Patience and suffering. And that's James 5, verse 7 through, 12. And he talks about that, being patient in our suffering. I won't read the whole verse, but you got to study it for yourself. But I'm telling you guys, just because you pray and you work and we try to be that light of the world, Jesus tells us, who lights a candle and puts it under a bowl? To me, that lighting a candle and putting it under a bowl, that's a little bit of a pet peeve of mine. These people that are in the church, every time the doors open, but don't say anything outside of it. Everything stays within the walls of the church. To me, the church should be your spiritual recharge. We come here to fulfill, to build each other up, because we're the strength in numbers. We have to meet. We have to help each other out. Jesus talked about not to be yoked with unbelievers. And I think by helping us, we hold each other up. That's why we're meant to come together. That's why That's why we meet, and we have this, not just necessarily to listen to the pastor or the music or just time of worship. We build each other up. We get that. We hold each other accountable. But if we're taking that and we're not doing anything outside of here, our faith is dead. We have no works with it. We're not going anywhere. We're not helping anybody. If the thing is people aren't just going to come walking through it. People that are here already know that they need this. And I saw something the other day. I posted it on Facebook. Somebody said, not going to the church because of the hypocrites is like not going to the gym because of the out-of-shape people. We're all here because we know we need to be here. You know, you don't go to the doctor to see healthy people. I mean, very often, sometimes people will do a checkup, even though that they're still checking themselves. They're still making sure they're good. They're concerned. Exactly. Yeah, Jesus wasn't talking to the people who you know, not called to become the righteous, but the sinners. We all have that we need to have that light. We need to take it out in the world. We need to shine it in this dark world. And I'm telling you guys from experience, and this is something I'm kind of trying to segue into in the car. About 8 years ago, I met a man named and bitter, vulgar. How would you describe him? Oh man, very, very, very bitter. At the time he had been through 5 marriages. He had a really bad taste in his mouth from the church and from decency prevents me what he's told me repeatedly about the church and about the Christians that he. And I thought, man, this guy he's a lost cause. You know, he'll never accept this. He's too old. He's too bitter. He's too stuck in his ways. He's not going to do this. Yesterday, I saw that same man talk about going to a Bible study, and he was excited about it when he was in a trip in Alabama last week. When we first met, he respected what I did, but he didn't love that I was part of a faith-based organization, and I'm not going to back off my faith, and he never. I didn't enforce it on him, but he went back, so we just kind of had a mutual respect there. But now I'm seeing him. He's one of the co-founders of a global organization that's trying to go global in a ministry. My point is, just because somebody's out there and it looks like they're that patience in suffering, that patience in doing what's good, just because it doesn't look like it, God's power is all powerful. And it doesn't happen in our time. We have a bad habit of thinking if it doesn't happen in 2, 3 days, 6 months, a year, oh, it's not going to happen. I've given it time. I've tried. It didn't work. Sometimes you got to plant that seed and let it grow. That ripple takes a long time to get across the pond sometimes. It's amazing, guys. I'm telling you, what one little thing, you don't realize it, and that's one thing that I'll keep in mind because my father-in-law passed away, and it's been 4 years ago, last month. He had affected a whole lot of people, and it never knew it. And he kind of got to be a little bitter over it. And that's what Christy said when he passed is if everybody had known, if he had known from all these people how he affected them. The thing is, we don't know. It's not our place to know. It's not our place to get discouraged. And it's hard. It's really hard when you're out there and you're doing what you think is right. You're trying to have a working faith. You're trying to be that light, and you don't see anything changing. You don't see the seed you planted grow. It may grow into somewhere, and it describes, and I'm not having the verse in here. The mustard seed is really, really small, right? But it grows into a big, huge vine that birds perch in and everything else. We don't often see that, and we may never see that seed that we plant, that little mustard seed, grow into that huge mustard plant. It doesn't mean it doesn't happen. Jesus talks about throwing. We're going to throw seeds out there. So I got this place marked. don't. I won't dig for it. But it tells a parable of seeds thrown out. Some of them land in the rock and they don't ever take root. Some of them, land in the weeds, basically, I paraphrase it, and get choked out. Some of those seeds land in good soil and take off and flourish. We can't get discouraged because we don't know the soil that we're planting in. We're going to plant all kinds of soil. We don't know it. We won't know it until it grows. We don't know if it's in deep soil that's going to take off, a good soil that's going to take off and flourish. We don't know if it's going to land on the rocks or among the. We don't know that. It's not our place. We're just called to do it. Go out and make disciples of all nations, which is huge, and we've done that. But we're losing ground here at home. Well, we're sending ministries, we're sending missionaries all over the world, different parts of the world, but we're dying in our own country. Our own morals, our own Christian values that we're based on are fading fast. The only religion now that can be discriminated against is us, which is kind of discouraging. It really is, because it's like we're the only ones that can't speak up. We're the only ones that they're being suppressed. You know why? Because we're the only ones a threat. There's two ways you can look at that. You can look at it, and it's the fact that, oh man, I can't say anything, I can't speak my faith. We're warned. We're warned repeatedly that this day is coming. Or are we in the end times? I don't know. I'm not a doomsday person. I really don't know. I live day to day. I can step out that door and get hit by a truck. It doesn't really matter at that point. Too late for me. So we need to be prepared at all times. But my point is we were warned this is coming. This is nothing new, and it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. It may never get better. That's good, though, because it means we're doing the right thing. As long as we're being persecuted, as long as we're being not accepted, as long as we're doing the right thing. The bad thing is that we're losing a lot of people to those, which we're warned about. It's been about probably 15 years ago, I read Revelations. I never questioned what's in the Bible, but I have trouble understanding, wrap my mind around some things. And it probably wasn't even that far ago. It was probably 10 years ago. I was reading Revelations, and I got to the part where he's talking about that they're going to strike the earth with plagues, and people aren't turning from God. They're going to turn and curse him. I thought, man, why aren't these people repenting? I just couldn't wrap my mind around that at the time. I just couldn't see it. But I'm seeing it now. I could see that. If people want to live their lifestyle, if you take God out of the equation, you can do a whole lot of things, right? You can live how you want to because there's no conviction. And one really dangerous belief now, and I believe Brian touched on it last week, and I'm going to kind of touch on it a little more, this all roads lead to heaven. No, it doesn't work that way. I am the truth, the way, and the life. No one gets to the Father except through me. Pretty black and white. And I know that there was I don't really care much for him anyway, but Hollywood is really, really corrupted with immorality and everything else. And so a lot of these famous actors, not all of them, but there's a lot of them that are, speaking out. And if for some reason in our world now that if a celebrity says something, it's just like it's chiseled out in stone. I don't understand that, but they spoke it's true. Well, there's some actor came on and made this big statement of how the Bible was translated from a dead language, rewritten, edited, prose to the Pope, prose to the King, and there's this big long thing. I was like, that's a very dangerous thing, because that was nothing historically accurate in what he said, but people would believe it because he's famous. Isn't that sad? It's scary. It really is. It's the ignorance. This is why we come into play. We need to have our story straight. I'm not much of a minister. I'm really not. But I do try to be a historian. And I've got a lot of information on how we got the Bible, and there's a really good Bible study on you can get from Salt Cellar, and I've got copies of it if anybody wants them. We need to have answers for those questions, because that's what they're looking for. If they can debunk what we're using, we have faith. And that's what I try to explain to people. I have a faith that I can't explain. Because he was talking about, God speaking to him, not in an audible voice, but he could feel it when he had a revelation a while back. And I was like, good, it's not just me then. Because sometimes I feel like God speaks to me. Not in an audible sense, but it's in a way you can't explain. It has to be from God. It's not thought coming in. It's just like things being forced in there, and I can't really, I can't explain it. But it's there. But anyway, it's always been put on my heart. I'm a big into history, and I think that we really need to have answers to these questions when they come up. We need to be able to say, hey, no. Well, your information is incorrect. Tell me where you got your information from, and I'll tell you where I got mine from. For anybody that doesn't know, just a little quick history lesson. The Bible was translated from 3 languages, Greek, Hebrew, and Aramaic. It was translated into Latin, which the Catholics did, and that's where they gave it a bad name. The Catholics did abuse that information, the early Catholic Church, and kind of basically used it to their own gain. There was a lot of people that tried to translate it from Latin into other languages, which ended up martyred. One of them was actually burned as a stake, and his own pages of his own Bible were used for kindling. Martin Luther, and I'm not saying because I come from a Lutheran church. I wasn't born a Lutheran. I was Lutheran about 10 years. I was actually came up non-denominational, which is the reason why I get in and read my Bible myself, because back when I was a kid, we had pastors come in every 2 years, and every one of them had something totally different. So at some point, I started saying, somebody's not right somewhere. I'm going to get in there and read it for myself. So then I started getting into the history and all this, and I was actually introduced to somebody a few years ago that kind of started me on a path of this questioning the Bible's validity, how solid it was. He was kind of way out there, but he did put me on the right path of looking for this stuff myself again. And I did. And I kind of find out those arguments aren't even valid anymore. There's too much history. There's too much information out there that, and what kills me, we take the words of Socrates and Aristotle and all these guys, they're written, the time span between the time they were written to the time they were found is way after the Bible was written. And put together. The canon was put together. There was nothing edited. There was nothing taken out. There were some things that, if you look at the and I hate this show. It's called Banned from the Bible. If you've ever seen it or not, on the History Channel, you got to be careful about watching those. You got to really look at that, because some of those books weren't banned. The dates, the things that happened, didn't coincide with the times that they were supposed to have taken place. So they're completely false. And some things that weren't put in the canon weren't there because they just didn't fit in with everything else. They're good to read, but they don't really fit in. The canon has a certain object. To me, it's divinely inspired. When you're speaking to somebody who doesn't believe, they're not going to understand that. They're not going to believe that. And I'm kind of getting off subject here with this, but this to me is really important, to know your history, know your roots, know all this. The one huge thing that we've got in our favor, and especially when they started talking about this was translated and edited and all this, look at the Dead Sea Scrolls that were discovered back in the 1950s. Kind of shot that whole theory in the water. Because they found books of Isaiah, there were so much other books, right off the top of my head, I can't remember, I'll have to look at it again, that were there, that they translated word for word into what we've got now, and it was 3 different discrepancies, and it was 3 spelling errors. Didn't change the text at all. That is divinely inspired. These scrolls, these scribes were so meticulous on how they worded everything. It's like we're documenting history now. They didn't have the technology, so they wrote down everything. And they were very meticulous. This is what they did for a living. This was their whole, it's not like it is now. People take pride in their work. They would really stick to their what they wrote out, and they were really meticulous, but everything was really documented to the word. So everything was pretty accurate. That just proves it. And what's funny is the Christian scholars have to go above and beyond to prove where the secular scholars are just taking at their word. So when they put all this back together, they did it by the text just to prove it, just to go a step further. There's no shadow of anybody's doubt, anybody's mind. It was the old scrolls written on lambskin. They used DNA testing to prove that, which to me is really cool. Because here it is, we've got it. We've got the information. This is nonsense. But it's we're fought so much harder because people don't want to believe it. They're fighting it. We're fighting a dead world right now. But there are people out there who are on the fence. A few years ago, when the Da Vinci Code came out, we had a good friend that went to see us. She said, I'm kind of questioning my faith now. The thing with the Da Vinci Code, it was always a book, but it shook a whole lot of people up. And it's just pretty bad. This was all written for entertainment. The guy said, this is entertainment. This is just something I just wrote. People took it as fact. This is what's sad. This is a fictional book made into a movie that people took as fact. But we have fact right here that's proven time and time and time again. And they don't believe it. There's dark forces in this world. You know, the thing that kind of came to me last night when I was kind of having this attack. It's scary. When it happens, it's scary. There's something really dark in this room. There's something really scary. Something far more powerful than I could ever hope to be. But you know something? There's a far more powerful force that's there too. You call upon it, and it's gone. We're going to be threatened. We're going to be threatened. We're going to be attacked. And we're warned about that. But going back to that that James verse, the demons know that, and they shudder. Isn't that exciting? We don't have anything to be afraid of. They shudder at that. They're attacking us because they're afraid, and they're going to lose. We're going to win this war. We're going to lose. I was at a Carmen concert years and years ago, and I'll never forget when we stood up there, and he was kind of, after he did one of the songs, he said, we will lose some battles, but we will win the war. Amen? So that's the thing. Yes, we're going to be attacked. This world's going to be gone. It's not our problem anymore. As long as we do what we're called to do while we're here. I think part of my calling is this really odd interest I've gotten in biblical history, because I've been able to come in when a lot of people are trying to contradict it and back up with the facts that have been given to me, thankfully, and the knowledge and the resources to find this information and help these people to get back on track. And some people that are kind of on the fence, kind of struggling. We all have gifts. We all have talents. I'm not going to, there again, I don't have the place marked, but Paul talks about it. And I used to have a list of spiritual gifts, and there's a bunch of them. I think there's 23, if I remember right. They're listed throughout the Bible. I used to have a list, and I'll have to find it again. But we all need to use our gifts that we're given. It's not, do what you're good at. And the thing is, more than likely what you're good at, you're going to enjoy. I'm not a good speaker. I'm not a good pastor. That's not what I was called to do. Can I teach? Yeah. I'm not really good once I get going. I'm usually better if somebody asks me a question to answer it, because it kind of gives me something to go off of. And it's like anything else. I kind of didn't do better with that, because if they're asking me a question, it's either something that they're really interested in or something they're really struggling with. So I'm kind of catering towards their needs. Then I just pray about it and go the right direction from there. It's not on me. It's being done through me. So guys, we go out today and go out in the rest of our week. This is something, like I said, I really encourage. Be strong in your faith. It's there. There's going to be things, and there are sometimes things that even shake me up a little bit. Some things that come to play or whatever. So guess what? I'll do some research on it and I'll prove it wrong. Because what's really funny is research your own beliefs, but also research the sources that are attacking them. It's really funny, because you'll find out a lot of times it's unfounded. There's nothing to base it on. Have that working faith. Be there for somebody. Doesn't matter what it is. Something that you think is small is huge a lot of times. There's a lot of times that people come and said something that I thought was pretty minute, but it was huge to somebody else. It's not our place to know how and what we're doing. Like I said, that bitter old man I met 8 years ago, I would never have thought would be such a devout believer now. Does he still have some rough edges? Yeah, he still got some rough edges. Very much so. But you guys should have met him 8 years ago. And for him to sit there and say, and one thing that really got me yesterday, and he said, I'm working on some things, and I can't remember what he was talking about, but he said, I need to learn this in my marriages too. Wow, that's huge. Because when you've been married 5 times, there's only one common denominator in the whole thing. Even if he's not the issue himself, it's his choices. So, guys, I hope I didn't bore you today. I really, like I said, I wasn't prepared. It just what came to me. I wish I had some more scriptures to point out. Guys, look through James, look at some of those others. Kind of start. The cool thing now is technology is great. You can go in there and punch in Google spiritual gifts, and it'll give you a list of scriptures. You can research them yourself. The internet's used for a lot of bad things. Let's use it for some good things. Quote June Rhee, good and evil is all how you make it. June Rhee, it's kind of funny. Just hear him say, he said, good is good. He said, love is good. He said, but love next door's wife is evil. That cracked me up. But he's absolutely right. The internet there's a lot of garbage out there, but we can use it to our advantage too. We have all the tools that the pagans have got. We can use them in our own way. Let's start getting the facts out there. And because there's a lot of people out there who just don't know, and they're kind of rocking the fence. And a lot of people out there that are kind of lukewarm. I'm good enough. I don't do this, I don't do that. Well, they don't have a personal relationship with God, and they're looking for that. They don't know to have that a lot of times. I didn't. I went to church for a long time. I don't have that real personal relationship with God. I was in church every Sunday. There's a lot of times I was waking up pretty harshly. I was one of those foxhole Christians. Oh, I'm in trouble again. Gotta pray about this. I'm out of that. If you'll pray back. A lot of people there. We need to kind of let them know. I was woken up pretty harshly, and sometimes it takes a few times. If Hebrews talks about God disciplines his sons, and that's a good thing when he does that. When you're going through hard times, very possible that God's kind of setting you straight. A good friend of mine named Ronnie Clark. He's a little extreme, but he's great, and he's a very devout believer. He called me the other day. He says, Randy, I apologize. I hadn't talked to you in a while. And I was like, well, I apologize because it's been the same way. The phone works both ways, and I'm just as guilty as you are. He said, I'm going through some things. He said, I just kind of overextended myself. And he said, God spanks us when we get in trouble. He's been spanking me pretty good. I said, yes, sir. I completely understand that. I've been there myself. But again, guys, like I said, I hope you enjoy. I hope I didn't bore you too much. Hope everybody takes something out of it. But just go out. Let's have a working faith. Let's all remember, we're all here for each other. We're all here to support each other. Let's not just make that a Sunday thing. Let's make that anytime we need anything thing. I know one huge thing that I can tell you that made a difference in our lives is Brian took time of his day to come help Chris with the computer the other day. He didn't have to do that. But it made it, and I don't know, it probably wasn't a big deal to you, but it was a huge thing to her. She was stressed about it all day the day before, trust me. So her mood was night and day different. Night and day. So it's just amazing, the little things and the way, the thought that you care makes a world of difference in somebody's life. Amen.
I actually had a guy in seminary who told one of the professors during class, I don't know that Jesus really ever existed. I don't know if there was ever really a man, Jesus, who did the things he did. I think it was more of a concept, that the idea of Jesus was more of a principle, and that's what people wrote about in the scriptures. And of course, all of us are kind of sitting there open, because this was like a third-year seminary student. And it was like, how can something so stupid be coming out of his face right now? But I remember the professor, he looked at him and he says, now that's a kind of a weird thing for you to say, because just from a historical standpoint, records that we still currently have, there is enough proof that this man, Jesus Christ, that did the things that Scripture says he did, existed, that there is of saying there is Julius Caesar or Nero. And nobody ever walks around going, I don't know if Julius Caesar ever really existed. I think it was more of a principle. Nobody says that. So, just intelligent and ignorant people alike sometimes get lost and confused in their understanding of things and completely ignore the facts. So, yeah, what Randy said about doing the study yourself and digging in and not simply believing things because somebody said it. Because I think about this man who's a third-year seminary student. A lot of people aren't going to question a seminary student. If he goes to people who, are maybe younger in their faith or maybe just aren't very secure in the things they've learned, maybe they haven't looked at church history, and he says that to them, they can go, well, yeah, maybe. That is an antichrist message right there. So that's all. I'm not going to repreach his sermon. It was very good, Randy. Thank you. All right, well, thank you guys for being here, and I pray that God will bless you and meet you right where you are this week.